It was winter 2014, in a quiet town in Minnesota, when 15-year-old Daniel Cooper experienced something he still refuses to talk about in person. He was alone that evening, something completely normal for him. His parents were at a charity banquet, and his older brother had left for college just a month earlier. Daniel had the house to himself for the night. Their two-story home sat at the edge of a wooded area, with large windows that overlooked nothing but tall, skeletal trees. He spent the early evening gaming in the living room, bundled in a hoodie, sipping soda, headphones on. Around 9:18 p.m., the first strange thing happened. He heard a knock. Not at the front door, but on the glass patio door behind the couch. Startled, he pulled off his headphones and turned around, but the back porch was empty. Assuming maybe an animal had bumped into the glass, he dismissed it. But then came a second knock. 3 slow, deliberate taps. This time, he turned off his console, stood up, and peered into the backyard. Still nothing. He flicked on the porch light. The floodlights revealed snow-covered steps, completely untouched. No footprints. No marks. Trying to stay calm, he double-checked the locks on every door and window, then went upstairs. He texted his mom, but got no reply. She was likely at the event. Everything was quiet again. Until 10:07 p.m. That's when he heard the staircase creak. Not from someone going upstairs, but from someone already halfway up. He paused the movie he was watching on his laptop and held his breath. The sound was subtle, just 1 or 2 wooden steps moaning, but Daniel knew those stairs. They didn't creak unless someone walked on them. He waited. Silence. Then, a sudden click. The hallway light outside his bedroom flicked off. Daniel froze. He hadn't moved. No timers were set. It had been on just seconds ago. He stood up and opened his door. The hallway was pitch black. His bedroom cast a weak glow onto the carpet. He slowly stepped out and reached for the light switch. It clicked back on. That's when he saw it. Just at the bottom of the stairs behind the wooden railing, a figure. Tall, still, shadowy, not moving, not speaking. For a full 10 seconds, Daniel stared, too terrified to blink. He thought maybe his mind was playing tricks on him, or maybe it was a trick of the light. But this shadow wasn't flat or flickering like normal darkness. It was dimensional, as if someone was standing just beyond the light's reach. And then it moved. The figure slowly stepped backwards into the darkness and vanished. Daniel slammed his door shut, locked it, and backed away. He stayed up all night in his room with a baseball bat in one hand and his phone in the other. His parents arrived home at 1:37 a.m. When they checked the house, nothing was missing. All doors were locked, all windows sealed. But near the back sliding door in the snow just beyond the porch, Daniel's dad noticed something strange. A perfect imprint of a shoe. Not a boot or sneaker, something older. Almost formal looking. Narrow, smooth-soled, and deep, as if the person had been standing perfectly still in the snow. Just one print. No trail leading in or out. Daniel never stayed home alone again. He refused to talk about what he saw, even in therapy. His parents eventually installed security cameras, but nothing ever showed up on them. Still, every now and then, the patio light flickers on in the middle of the night. And one time, the motion camera sent them a snapshot at 3:12 a.m. Empty backyard. Except for a faint, human-shaped distortion near the stairwell window. In 2018, a 21-year-old nursing student named Melissa R. experienced something that changed the way she thought about being alone. She lived in a rented studio flat, a compact, upstairs space above an old couple's detached garage in Oregon. The rent was cheap and the location quiet, surrounded by pine trees. Melissa's parents lived a few hours away. She had no roommates, no pets, and very few visitors. Most evenings, she came home from the hospital, made herself tea, reviewed notes, and slept. Until one Thursday night in November, something changed. At 2:03 a.m., she woke up suddenly. Not from a nightmare, but from a sound. It was faint, but distinct. Whispering. Two voices. Fast, overlapping, unintelligible. She lay frozen in bed, heart racing, trying to convince herself it was wind. Or maybe the old couple downstairs watching TV. But the sound wasn't coming from below. It was above. From the attic. Melissa's flat didn't have a proper attic, just a square ceiling panel with a pull cord. A crawl space, really. She hadn't even opened it since moving in. She lay still, listening. The voices faded. The next morning, she checked with the owners downstairs. They were kind but confused. They hadn't heard anything. They joked about old pipes making weird sounds in the cold. Melissa didn't laugh. That night, she placed her phone on her desk to record audio as she slept, just in case. The next morning, at 6:12 a.m., she checked the recording. For hours, there was only silence. Until 2:01 a.m. A single thump. Then faint whispering. Male and female. Unclear words. But one phrase, repeated 3 times, stood out. Don't wake her. Don't wake her. Don't wake her. Melissa stopped sleeping peacefully after that. 3 nights later, she heard the thump again, but this time, she was awake. And this time, something moved. She watched from bed as dust gently sprinkled from the attic seam in the ceiling, as if someone or something had shifted above it. She stared at that square in the ceiling for the next hour, not blinking. The next morning, she called a friend from her program, Daniel, and asked him to help her check the attic. He agreed, thinking it would just be rats or maybe a branch. They pulled down the panel together and unfolded the rickety ladder. Melissa climbed halfway while Daniel held the base. What they found was confusing. No rodents, no damage, no boxes or wiring, but there was something else. On the wooden beams, someone had carved symbols all over. Small spirals, interlocking rings, and one that looked like an open eye. In the center of the attic floor was a single item, a small porcelain doll wearing a dark green dress, sitting perfectly upright. Melissa picked it up. It was ice cold. She turned it over. No maker's mark, no branding, just a rough etching on the back, the same spiral symbol from the beams. That night, she placed the doll in a box and put it in her closet. But the whispering didn't stop. In fact, it got louder. 2 nights later, she woke to find the attic panel open. The doll was no longer in the box. She found it sitting on her desk chair, facing her bed. Melissa moved out the next day. She never went back for her things. The old couple who owned the house said they never heard anything. But when the unit was listed again months later, the real estate photos blurred whenever the ceiling panel was in frame. A Reddit user who zoomed into one of the photos claimed they could see a face peering down, pale, smiling, with sunken eyes. Melissa still refuses to talk about what happened in detail, but she did post once on a now deleted message board. She wrote, "It wasn't a haunting. It was a waiting. Something was waiting for me to notice it, and once I did, it followed." This story comes from a woman named Carla Simmons, now in her early 40s. But what happened to her occurred when she was just 12 years old. A memory so disturbing that she still refuses to let her own children sleep in a room with uncovered windows. It happened in the spring of 1993 in a rural part of Montana. Carla's family lived in a single-level home, surrounded by open land and long gravel roads. That year, her parents began leaving her home alone during the day while they worked. They couldn't afford a babysitter anymore, and she was mature enough, they said. She didn't mind. She was used to the quiet until the quiet changed. It began one afternoon while she was doing homework at the kitchen table. She glanced toward the large living room window and saw something odd. A young boy standing outside, halfway behind a tree. Just standing there, staring at the house. She blinked. He was gone. She assumed it was a neighbor's kid playing, but the closest neighbors lived nearly a mile away, and the figure didn't look familiar. The next day, around the same time, she saw him again. This time closer. He was standing at the edge of the gravel driveway, wearing old-fashioned clothes, a brown coat, scuffed black shoes. Carla thought he looked out of place, like he was from another time. He didn't wave. He didn't move. Just stared. She told her parents that night. Her mom said it was probably just someone passing through. Her dad promised to check the trail cameras he had set up for wildlife. But the next day, the boy was at the window. He didn't knock. He didn't speak. He just stood with his hands at his sides, face emotionless, watching her through the glass. Carla didn't move. She was too terrified. He wasn't smiling. He wasn't angry. He just looked wrong, like someone had sculpted a child without understanding what real children looked like. His eyes were too wide, too still. She ran into the bedroom and locked the door. When her parents got home, they found her still hiding. They searched outside, no footprints, no sign of anyone. But later that night, her father reviewed the trail cam footage. At 3:44 p.m., the boy appeared, walking across the edge of the property, heading toward the house. Frame by frame, the footage glitched. At one point, the boy's head turned sharply, too sharply, as if disconnected from his body. Then, the footage froze. The next frame showed nothing but static. After that day, Carla begged not to be left alone anymore. Her parents thought she was overreacting, until the night her mother saw him too. Around 2 a.m., she got up to check a noise and passed the hallway window. She saw the boy standing at the tree line, still, watching. The next morning, her mother took Carla to stay with her aunt for a few days. Her father remained behind, skeptical but curious. He wanted to catch whoever or whatever was tormenting them. He never did, because on the third night, he disappeared. The police found the house locked from the inside. No signs of forced entry. No blood. No struggle. But in the living room, the couch had been moved. And on the floor, written in the dust, were 4 words. "He let me in." Carla never returned to that house. She says to this day, she doesn't know if the boy was human, a ghost, or something else entirely. But she does know this. He wasn't just watching, he was waiting. And her father, the last person left alone, was the one who finally opened the door.